Slaptail Squad, assemble.
Dun 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 na 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 Beaveman dun 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 na 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 Beaveman. It's I, the Beaveman, coming to you, not from you. That's gross. Becoming like dropping out of your vaginal orifice. Coming to you from Beaver's Den Alternative, and it's a nice evening, and I'm super excited because we're going to talk about Return of the Jedi, and I can't wait to hear what Tromondae has to say about it. But first, because he's just chomping at the bit, I can see it. Let me introduce my number 2, the Rons.
Hey, how's it going,
What?
Beaveman?
It's going well. Thank you for being here with us this evening.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. You've been looking forward to doing this, so can't wait to see what Troy, Tromondo, Mongo,
Oh no!
right? Whatever name he goes by, has to say about this.
So two
I
things.
can't either because I
Ron,
think I'm going to start yelling. I think I'm going to be yelling at him.
Ron,
Yes, sir.
What were you say, Tromondae?
First, you said thank you for having me, as if you're not a part of the podcast, like you're a guest.
Well, one of the tenets I live by is I will be humble, courteous, and respectful above all, and I'm always humble.
Oh, shut the fuck up. No,
okay, there we go.
And then the second thing, I was waiting for you to say Tromondae. What did you say?
Mondo,
Troy,
Mongo,
Tromongo. Yeah,
I was waiting for you to say Mandingo.
Oh well, I
It might not happen.
that didn't even come across my mind.
Sure, Ron.
No, but you want to ride on his shoulders.
Sure.
Or you're not going to let that go.
I'm not going to let that
Well,
go.
the Beaveman texted me about your nickname and like, so should we call you Mandingo?
Hey, it's fitting.
It's got to be something easy to say, something that just rolls off the tongue.
Okay. No. That's what he said, right?
All right, don't even, you know what, Swan? Don't even fucking start.
You didn't even introduce me.
I will in a second. I don't have to just automatically introduce the squad members. Rons, did you recognize my theme song?
I was going to ask about your theme song.
I did recognize your theme song.
Did you decide that you need one like Darth Vader?
Hopefully I won't get sued.
If I'm correct, that was the He-Man theme.
Well, now it's the Beaveman theme.
I like that.
But as everyone should know, I am the Beaveman, and I am the master of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean, Also with us is the Swan. Say hello, Swan.
Hello, Swan.
And of course, the Tromondae is here. He's super excited. I can't wait to hear what he has to say, because now we're going to talk about Return of the Jedi, as Tromondae has continued his journey to learning more about Star Wars. If I may, I've been watching a lot of
cartoons,
the Clone Wars. Yeah, the Clone Wars and Rebels. And I really wish I would have watched it a long time ago. I started watching the Clone Wars when it first came out, but I kind of wasn't very engaged with it because it wasn't that interesting. But it tells a lot. It answers a lot of questions. The downside is there is 7 seasons of the Clone Wars. So if you can imagine, there's I think the first season probably only had 15 episodes, but there's 20 some per season after that. That's a lot of episodes to watch. And they just keep cranking stuff out, so I'm trying to keep up.
How long are the episodes?
About 20 minutes or so.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So that's a lot of TV
2
watching.
Episodes.
Yeah. If you try to knock out 2 episodes a day.
It is. But if anybody can do it, the Beaveman can.
I feel like I can. I feel like you're right.
I think you can.
Rebels, I will say, is even more solid. And now there's the Swan and I have been watching The Bad Batch, which is also part of canon now, which is really good. And that is getting released every week.
What's The Bad Batch?
The Bad Batch. It's about some clones that have.
Oh yes.
There's about these clones that are not. They have a little bit of a. They have some enhanced abilities that are considered like they're. That's why they call them the Bad Batch. Like they're not like the other clones, and they actually first appeared in. I don't know what season of the Clone Wars, but they're in the Clone Wars. But now they've got their own show, and it's pretty good. I like it. I like it when they take these other characters and do something instead of and just develop other stories. I like it. It's good. And they tied in with Rebels also.
Oh, that's
and of
awesome.
course everything else. But let's get to it.
I don't even like cartoons. Wait, I wanted to tell you something. I don't even really like cartoons, but I'm interested in that. So it's
you don't have to be snotty about it.
Not being
you don't have to be shitty. You don't have to be shitty.
Being snotty, I'm just saying.
Just say what you feel. You don't have to go. You don't have to say every time you speak. You don't have to go. I was going to say something. You don't have to do that.
Don't be a dick.
You can just speak.
Swan.
So
all you got to do is wait 5 minutes. I'm going to open my mouth and it's going to deflect off of you.
Right.
So,
right.
just wait for that 5. So anyway, yeah. And,
so you're going to open your mouth.
And Tromondae there.
And it's going to deflect.
And it's going to deflect off of Swan.
Yeah. So I'm going to
I want to say something right now, but I'm going to keep it inside.
Wow. No wonder he's in love with you.
No,
don't. You said it, Ron.
I did, and I stand by it.
Ron's has definitely gone a way we don't want to go. Well, I guess Ron wants to go there. He goes there every single time.
I do not. No.
He does not.
We have met the significant others of each member of the podcast.
No.
Every time. Now he's going to talk about some significant other. Go ahead.
Mandigos.
Please.
You haven't even met Tromondae.
Well, you had COVID, and I look forward to meeting him.
Yeah, I haven't met your wife, Ron.
Yeah.
You should have been on the Lost podcast. She was on.
She's from Canada.
You don't know her. I met her at summer camp.
In Canada.
Band
summer camp. Even worse.
Yeah.
Can I just say before we get into it, can I just say something that really, really bothers me?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure.
If we said no, you were going to say it
bothers
anyway,
me
right?
any other day.
I find it extremely upsetting, this trend of women wearing their cell phone in their back pockets. Because all it's doing is ruining my eye candy.
Well, the women's pants pockets in the front you can't put your cell phone in it. It's not.
I don't care. Fucking carry it. I don't want to see half of a heart-shaped ass. I want to see the whole thing.
Well, what do you think about Go ahead, Tromondae.
If them putting their phone in their pocket, if it loses half of their heart-shaped ass, they must not have a big ass to begin with.
No. I will use the Swan as an example. When she puts that giant phone in her back pocket, it distorts the beautiful picture that I like to see.
So you just want to see like some smooth. You don't want to see no hard lines.
I'm gonna give you the butt. Okay, not that you want to see my butt.
Yeah, I don't want that. I want to see the actual.
You can't see my butt. Hold on.
Yeah, we can't see this one. No matter what you think.
Now I put my phone in the pocket. Butt view.
Yeah, see how terrible that is? That ruins it. I hate that. I fucking hate that. Go back to the tiny phones or carry it in your hands.
I feel like I'm like on an episode of one of those porn sites.
We need to release these videos of the podcast.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
So, okay.
I had to stand on a chair to show you that.
Since we're on that topic for a moment, I hate when a woman does the same thing, but she puts her phone in like her bra strap. And so then it makes...
people who put anything in their bra is freaking white trash. Like your cigarettes, your freaking wallet, your whatever. No one wants your bra money. Nasty.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, though, I've seen women at the dojo put their watch there. When
take it off, and they're not.
Okay.
Take it off and put it in your locker. Hey,
okay.
If you're gonna do a martial art, don't wear a fucking watch.
Well, Fitbit's all the rage.
Yeah, and why put it there? You have a built-in pocket. If you need to have it on you so much, just shove it in that pocket.
Where's the built-in pocket?
It's a purse.
Well, if you've watched X-Men, there's also a prison pocket. I think that's Deadpool.
Yes.
So,
exactly.
what do you think about the pockets on the side of the pants? You know,
Like
those
cargo
yoga pants where
pants?
they have a
Oh, where you for your cell phone?
Yeah.
That doesn't distort your view. That is actually a good idea. But however, you cannot run with those. It's going to come right out.
Okay.
It's impractical.
They just need to carry them in their hand. Why do you want to distort that view that I want to see? Why mess with my eye
I
candy?
prefer the flip belt. Takes care of all
Maybe
of
they don't
that.
want you to see
Oh yeah,
it.
that's super cool.
It is cool. You can't even see it if you put it underneath your shirt. When I go running, my flip belt is under there, and no one even can see it.
Your what?
Flip
Anyway,
belt. It's like a
I'm just saying what
waistband
annoys
that you
me.
can put your
Okay.
phone or keys and all
I'm just
that
saying
in.
what things
Anyway.
annoy me. That's something
You know,
that annoys me.
I mean,
Why mess with my perfect
guys,
picture?
we don't slide our phone down our pants.
We do if we want it on
No.
vibrate.
Just
No.
you, Rons. Just you.
It's not that much of a vibration.
His is.
not
He's
like the
got
old
it
days.
turned
Not like
way
the-
up.
It's not like the push to talk phone. That thing actually vibrated really well. Yeah.
Well, depending on the carrier you get, I guess.
Chewie, calm down, Chewie. All right, let's get to it. Tromondae, you saw Return of the Jedi. You had some stuff to say. Let's hear it.
I don't know if you saw my text or not, but
Of course I saw it.
This was probably like my least favorite of the three.
Okay. Well, there are
Like the
three of them.
storyline was like a little bit. Yeah, so the storyline it just seemed like a little bit hard to follow. And like the new characters that got introduced, like it just kind of took my mind out of what I have known, quote unquote, Star Wars to be.
What new characters are you talking about?
So like the characters, like it just like it made it. What's his name? Like the big slug looking guy.
Jabba the Hutt.
Yes.
Jabba the
and
Hutt.
like
Jabba the
He's
Hutt.
in the first movie. You
Yes.
just don't see him because they cut those scenes, and you hear about him throughout all the movies.
Remember, Han Solo owes him money.
So yeah, like I remember hearing him, but now like putting a face to it and then like seeing like some of the other characters, it almost became like a little like too cartoonish for me, and that's not what I was expecting Star Wars to be.
Well,
Aha.
in defense on Jabba the Hutt, he's like it's well known that the Hutts or Jabba the Hutt, they're like the underground mafia. Everybody knows about them. They're accepted, and that's how that's how they make their money. It's like it's their way. You know, you've got to bribe them or you got to work for them. But so that it was actually an intricate part of the canon.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I will say this: I do agree with what Tremonde is saying, though, because there's parts of Return of the Jedi that are kind of campy, and I assume that they made it that way to appeal to a broader audience. But if you actually understand Star Wars and the canon, the campiness doesn't actually exist if you read like the books or the comics or whatever. Jabba the Hutt is probably the most notorious gangster in the galaxy.
Yeah,
Murder is his thing. Corruption's his thing. Every bad thing that you can imagine is his thing. You just really don't get that vibe because he doesn't look that awful or terrifying, and his crew doesn't look that awful
Right.
or terrifying. So you don't really think about it that much. But if you watch like
I disagree with that. I got that vibe watching it because it's like, everybody knows about him, right? Like you said, he's a gangster, but he probably bribes a lot of officials to have his way. And it's just not him. It's his entire, are they called the Hutts? Right? Because Jabba the Hutt is referred to through most of the series.
there's more than one Hutt.
Yeah.
They control different areas just like mob bosses do.
Exactly. So, everybody knows about the Hutts, from law officials all the way down to the lowest gangster.
Anakin's mother they were originally owned by another Hutt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just don't like him because.
But I understand what you're saying, Tremonde. We're supposed to, and you don't see the thing is you don't see him. You just keep hearing about him, so you have to make up in your mind what he's like. But he's actually in the first movie, but that scene wasn't in the original release. But now, if you want to see it, you can see those actual cut deleted scenes in Disney Disney has them in there. They were not in the first one, with the original release in '77. But no, I agree with what you're saying. But what else didn't you other particularly like about it or care for it or?
And so like that, and then like as I said, like following the storyline, like I went back and watched it twice, and I think like I can probably go for watching it again to just better understand the story, and also like I'm gonna need help, like just like with the last, connecting the two.
So do you have questions then?
Yes. So
No, well, the Beaveman has been on Tromondae for years to watch this, and let's give it up for the Beaveman because he's waiting patiently. Tromondae should have known that he was going to have, want these questions. So let's get to him.
yes, sir.
Got your back, Beaveman.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Rons.
He's just trying to defend you, to reiterate and state what you said. He's on your wagon right now.
So like when it opens up, I think like R2 and like CP, like they're kind of like opening up the
In the
scene. Did
desert.
they get separated from the bunch?
No. So the whole thing is they're C-3PO, R2-D2. They are wandering. They're on Tatooine and they're going towards the Hutt's, his castle or his stronghold, and they were put there as part of the plan. So they're going up there to knock on the door to get an audience with Jabba the Hutt, so that they can give Luke Skywalker's message to Jabba the Hutt.
Ah,
But
okay.
the other thing on that is you find that out why they're there, not only to give the message, but Luke acknowledges that, to seek an audience with you, I got to give you something like a tribute to speak to you. So take these droids. Right? And C-3PO, and I'm going to back the B-Man up. It's like, yeah, he is just flip-flopping. And R2-D2 is the badass. Like, well, if I got to go, I got to go. So that was the underlying reason why they showed up, not only to give the message, but to as payment for an audience for Luke to talk to Jabba.
Yeah, and not a real payment. Luke has no intention of letting him have them.
Do you think
That
that
was one of my-
C-3PO
Well, maybe
and
C-3PO
R2D
because
were
he's
in on that
annoying.
plan, or they didn't know anything about it?
C-3PO didn't know anything about the plan because you can't let C-3PO in on a plan because he'll fuck it up. R2-D2 knew the plan, yes.
Right, because he's a dumbass.
Why do you even ask that? You know for sure R2-D2 knew the plan.
I know the answer.
And speaking of which,
then why'd you ask the question?
I want to think.
Because Tromondae didn't know.
Well, why don't you let him answer a
But
question? Ask a question.
Yeah, but speaking of which, I was in line to get my license, and I'm another Star Wars fan, and the woman can't get her boyfriend into it. I said, "Hey, you want to approach it like this because you guys enlightened me about the droids and the opening scene in Star Wars. We don't allow those in there, and look at it from this perspective." And she goes,
So wait a minute.
I
So
never
you
saw
say
that.
to a stranger, you should look at it from a racial disparity perspective? Hey, you know how you
Yeah,
want
I
to get them to
did.
watch this? Just, oh my God, dude.
Yeah, I
seriously.
did actually, because
I think you need
guys,
assistance when speaking with people you don't know.
No, cringy moments with Ron. These are his
please ask us
specialty.
please let him ask some questions.
it wasn't
Please let him
cringing
ask some
moments with
questions.
me. It was just to pass the time.
That is a cringy
Anyway,
moment. Please, Tromondae,
no,
ask
it's
some
not.
questions. Thank you.
Ask
It's
the
20 minutes
question.
in. Can we let him ask a question?
He's looking for an ass kicking.
Come on, Swan, let him ask. He's got his finger up and he's trying to ask.
Okay, Tromondae, you can have the microphone.
Would you let him speak?
Okay. So that was actually one of my questions of like wondering like why were they there to connect that part of the story.
All part of the plan. All part of the plan. You have to remember what they're doing is they're trying to get Captain Solo. That's the whole point. Jabba the Hutt has Han Solo. If you remember, after the end of the last movie, Boba Fett took Han Solo, loaded him up on Slave One, flew away to Jabba the Hutt.
And he's like frozen, or
Yes.
not frozen, but whatever, in stone, or what is it called?
Carbonite.
Carbonite.
Carbonite. There you go.
Ah, okay. And that was one of my questions. Like when I first saw it, I was like trying to remember like who was in there, and then once they let him out, then I was trying to understand like what type of capsule or what have you was he put into.
Yeah,
Well,
he's frozen in carbonite,
Now,
which
here's an
you'll see that
interesting
later on also in the other canon. The bounty hunters start using it a lot.
yeah. Is there like a form of like sexism in Star Wars? And I'm trying to recall like what exactly happened that made that thought come to mind.
I
probably
mean,
with
probably
the
because Princess
Princess
Leia
Leia.
is naked, fucking strapped to Jabba the
That's not
Hutt.
sexism.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, he's treating her like a
Yes.
freaking slave.
So actually,
Okay, that's
thank you for
different.
that. That actually is where the thought came from because he had her like on a chain, like she was like an animal being tamed.
I think it's more like she was on a chain as a sexual plaything, not as an animal, because he thought she was hot. He always chains up the pretty girls.
And as a trophy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And when he doesn't like them, he disposes of them.
Yeah.
How does he do that?
Oh, the
Throws
floor
them
drops
into
out
that
from underneath
pit.
them, and they drop
Yeah,
down in the
that-
pit, and they get eaten.
Yeah.
He's got a list of questions there. I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay.
I always write them down. Oh, and it's funny because one of my things that I did write down was that I feel like R2D2 was like a gangster.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome. There was something that I thought that I didn't know about. I didn't realize that there's a lot of fans out there that actually believe R2D2 is the biggest asshole out of all the characters. And I've never thought that, but the theory is, it's a really interesting theory, is that R2D2 is one of the characters that is in every canon. So he's in every single movie. He's in the Clone Wars, he's in Rebels, he's in everything. Okay? But here's the interesting thing is that there's no proof, and I guess George Lucas has never confirmed that R2D2's memory ever actually did get wiped. So there's a big fan base that thinks that R2D2 is actually the biggest asshole character out of all of them because he could be answering all the questions for all the characters throughout the entire thing. In other words, answering the questions to Luke, who really is your father? Because I know him. I've been around for hundreds of years, basically. I mean, R2D, the estimated age of C-3PO is over 80 years by the time he meets Anakin. And so R2D2's been around forever too. And if R2D2 never had his memory wiped, even though there's scenes where he says wipe these droids' memories, but George Lucas has never confirmed that his was. We know C-3PO's memory was wiped. So if that's true, and R2D2 actually knows all the answers to everybody's questions, that is pretty assy. But I'd never heard that before.
He's like, oh, you need to figure that shit out on your own.
So here's an interesting fact that, according to George Lucas, the entire Star Wars saga is told by R2D2 some 100 years after the Return of the Jedi.
Oh, that's pretty badass.
So I would have to back you up that his memory wasn't wiped. Yeah.
Well, that kind of sucks though, because that
or at
means
least
that
maybe partial wiped.
because that means he knows the answers to everybody's questions. He was there when Luke and Leia were born. He's been there for everything. So he has the answers to everything. So in my mind, I've always considered, as time goes by, I'm like, well, R2D2 is like the hero of every movie. There's always something where R2D2 is like saving their asses, but to hear that, I'm like, wow, what if he really does know everything? Why hasn't he told the humans all these things that would have solved all these problems and probably have brought balance to the universe a lot earlier? Just some other thing to actually contemplate and ponder in this giant confusion. But that's really interesting. I didn't know that George Lucas was actually saying that this story was told by R2D2. That's pretty cool. But again, assy. It's cool, but assy.
It's one of these interesting facts sites. So, it's like.
Yeah, if it's actually true.
So another reason, and going back to what Tromondae said about the carbonite, Han Solo was frozen in carbonite in The Empire Strikes Back because Harrison Ford has not yet signed on for Return of the Jedi, and the producers were unsure if he would come back. So basically, when they said, that little tidbit that's really cool. I didn't know that. It's like, well, if you come back, we'll unfreeze you. Until then, you're kind of suspended animation.
Well, they always say that he wanted to be done with that character after the first movie and kept wanting them to kill him off.
Oh, I think I heard something like that. Yeah.
All right, Tromondae, what do you got? Rapid fire, go.
I was like hurt that Yoda died.
Your favorite character?
Well, he was 900.
Did he really die though? Did he
It
really
doesn't
die?
matter. Like I was expecting to see Yoda all the way through to the end, and I'm sure. Does he make like other appearances?
You watched the movie, right?
Yeah, no, I'm saying like, does he make other appearances?
In other movies.
Does he make appearances in other movies, like past this one?
Yeah, because you have to remember that the original trilogy is 4, 5, and 6. And then 18 years later, we got the first one. So he's in episode 2 and 3. He's not in episode 1. No, he is in
Okay.
episode 1. Yeah, he's in episode 1. So he's in all 3 of them. And he's in the Clone Wars and he's in
Okay,
Rebels.
can you explain like? Okay, can you explain like what he was saying in like his final speech?
What he was saying, he was telling,
And I believe he was having a conversation with Luke.
yeah, so Luke was asking him if Vader was really his father, asking him if he was really a Jedi, if he was a Jedi yet. Basically, that's it. And then telling him that there was another, he wasn't alone. There was another Skywalker. He was trying to say Skywalker. So he was trying to tell Luke that he wasn't by himself. He was the last. He's the last of the old Jedi, but he's the first of the new, if you want to think of it that way. So he was revealing to him that he wasn't a Jedi Knight yet. His last mission, if you will, was to face Vader to complete his training. And he told him that he knew enough of the Force and had learned enough that he was prepared to meet Vader. Which brings us to this very interesting theory that Swan had that I think that we should talk about, but I bet she forgot already.
She probably did.
Oh my
The
God.
Swan
Okay,
sucks.
so
What is the theory?
Oh, the time theory? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, the time theory. Because you remember from Empire Strikes Back, right? Luke goes to Dagobah to train with Yoda. And subsequently, at the same time, everything's going on with Han, Leia, Chewie, C-3PO, where they're trying to get to Cloud City and evade the Empire, right? So even with the Millennium Falcon not being able to achieve hyperspace or hyperspeed, they still probably wouldn't have taken them years, in other words, to get to Cloud City. It probably only took them maybe a month or something like that. So this is a big thing where everybody's trying to figure out how much time did it actually take and how much time did Luke actually train with Yoda? Because everybody assumes it wasn't years. It was probably only months, and it might have only been 1 month that he trained with Yoda. Which, if you think about it, you're like, okay, well, the Jedi, the younglings train, they're taken away from their families as babies. They're raised in the temple. They go from being younglings to being Padawans to being Jedi Knights. So they're training their whole life to be Jedis. And Luke did it in probably even a massive, even if you want to go way out on a limb, maybe 3 months is how long he trained. So now, Swan, go ahead.
So I was thinking like that if he was on that planet for a month in time that was passing in the real world, that maybe when he entered that forest, that to the magic forest or whatever you call it, the time passed differently. Like in Chronicles of Narnia, like when they go into Narnia, they get older, or the time passes slower, and then they come out and everything changed in the world. Or like when you go from here to Mars and it takes 3 years, but on Mars time is so much different per se. Like a day is longer or shorter.
See, I was going to agree with you before you went into the Mars thing. If you would have just stuck with the Chronicles of Narnia.
The Narnia thing was my theory. But then I was kind of thinking of it the other way too.
No, you're throwing science into it when we're trying to throw mysticism into it.
Okay, keep it to mysticism then. So like Narnia.
No, I think that makes sense.
Whatever you think it is.
No, I think that makes sense because whatever. I think that makes sense because otherwise he would have only have trained.
How would he be a badass in like a month?
Exactly.
Well, you could be he is
a super
Anakin
Jedi.
Skywalker's, he's Anakin Skywalker's son. I mean,
yeah, but how do you think he would be controlling it that well?
Yeah. Anakin was a freaking badass, but still had to train forever. So I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And apparently, legends wise,
Well, Anakin really didn't have to train that forever, but I'm not going to get in. I'm not going to get to the timeline there because he already had the Force with him. But
he still had to be
he-
trained. He
you
didn't know
know,
how to use the Force. That's why
that-
he became a Padawan. He didn't know how to do anything.
yeah, I think he did. But
And what evidence do you have of
he
that?
didn't understand.
What
it
evidence do you have of that he knew how to use the Force as
because
a
I
kid?
said so.
No,
Because he just wants to be argumentative.
it's not in any of the.
No, I
it's
mean
not in the movie. So
I don't want to.
he's not using the Force in the movie. So what makes you think he knows how to use it?
It technically, it really depends on how you look at it because I don't want to get too far ahead with Tromondae not seeing 1, 2, and 3.
No, that's a pretty
'cause
bold
he's seen
statement.
4,
You're
5,
saying
and
he knew
6,
how to
but
use
now
the
he's gonna go
Force,
see the
but
prequels.
what was he doing to use the Force? Even if he used the Force,
Mind
he didn't
choking
understand
people.
it. Even if he used the Force, he didn't understand it.
Yeah, and that's what I said.
But you said that he didn't need
you're right.
training.
He was using the.
You just said he didn't need training.
Well, no, he didn't. I stand by that too.
But that's not what you said.
No, because eventually he would have figured it out.
Yeah, but
Okay.
how can
All right.
Luke
Well,
do
Tremonti,
it
go
all
ahead,
in
Tremonti.
like a month then?
Well, Tremonti, do you need another glass of wine now to continue with us?
No, that was a little soda. So, did I miss something that would have like set me up to know that Luke and the princess were siblings?
Yeah, the Kentucky kiss. There was no tongue.
You're ridiculous, Rons.
Is that Ron? So why did Obi-Wan keep that from Darth Vader?
Okay. So
Once again, it's gonna. Yeah, I'll let the Beaveman answer it. This is his podcast.
okay. So if you read the book, it says that Anakin didn't know that Padme was pregnant. But if you watch the third movie, Anakin knows Padme's pregnant. And if you watch the Clone Wars, Anakin knows Padme's pregnant. So once again, it goes back to my saying that George Lucas had a plan, but the plan changed. Obi-Wan, the character that we know as Obi-Wan from A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, acts like he doesn't know that Leia is Luke's sister. He acts like he doesn't even know there is another sibling. Because if you remember, in Return of the Jedi, he says to Yoda that boy is our only hope. And Yoda says, no, there is another. As if Ben doesn't know that Leia exists. But if you read the book, where they expound on it a little bit, when Obi-Wan says that to Yoda, in his mind, he's thinking that Leia couldn't do what Luke could do, even though he knows that Leia is his sister. Doesn't feel like Leia could be the one to take out Darth Vader.
I feel like she'd be more of a badass to be able to.
No,
Yeah.
because that's why this one is my favorite. That's why Return of the Jedi is actually my favorite for one reason and one reason only. In Star Wars, in A New Hope, fuck you, Ron. In A New Hope, Luke is this young.
I'm agreeing with you.
He's like this young, pretentious kind of kid who doesn't understand how the universe works. Okay. So you love him, you like him a lot, but is he my favorite character in Star Wars? No. As a kid, actually, Han Solo was my favorite. Okay. Empire Strikes Back. Luke gets to learn more. He gets better, but he whines to Yoda all the time. He's kind of whiny, and he rushes off and doesn't listen to Obi-Wan, and he doesn't listen to Yoda. So he's starting to grow on me. I really like him. I've always liked him, but he's not my favorite. Enter Return of the Jedi. Something has happened to him drastically between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Now, he is this total badass and arguably the most powerful Jedi of all time. He just doesn't know it yet. And he's still not as powerful as he will become in all the other canon, which is, he's just growing by leaps and bounds. And there's these subtle things that they do with him that you wouldn't notice unless you really, really peered and delved into things. And if you read the books or you read the comics or you did something other than just watch those first 3 movies, it's very significant that Luke is dressed all in black. It's very significant. But, most people just watch it and go, oh, it's cool. Luke isn't wearing he's not wearing a karate dogi or some shit anymore. And he's not wearing his yellow jacket and brown pants and black boots. He's dressed all in black.
Like Darth Vader?
Yeah. And once again, if you read into that they scrapped the ending, that he was going to turn.
That's not what happened.
and
That's actually not what
eliminate the
happened.
rebels.
That's not what happened.
Right? He was going to. No, well, that was one of the storylines they scrapped, because you go in there, they said he was going to put on the helmet, and now I'm Darth Vader. But back to what you were saying, he wore black for a specific reason. Yeah.
I don't think that's true. Do you have proof of that?
It's on the internet. It's
no,
true.
I mean, because I don't think that's true. Because
Yeah.
Rons, will you let me speak? I don't think that's true. I'm going to tell you why. Because in the book, those are thoughts that are going through Luke's head. And his inner mind, the things that he's thinking about that are all happening to him because he's being tempted by the dark side. So I don't know that was ever in a script. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, do you have proof that was actually in the script, or is that what he was thinking about in his head if you read the novel? Because that's in the novel. In his head, there's a point in time where he's thinking about, well, I could just kill both of them right now and rule the entire galaxy myself. Or I could kill the Emperor and rule with my father. Or I could kill my father and rule with the Emperor. Those are all things that are going through his head because he's being tempted by the dark side. So was that ever an actual storyline?
So that's why he wears black, right?
Was that ever an actual storyline? Did they ever actually write a script? That's what I keep asking you, but you're like, oh yeah, they did. I'm like, is that ever actually a freaking thing? Or are you just saying that that's what they inferred from the book?
There was I was just going to say, there was a sense of maturity that I did see in Luke, this, I was going to say episode. It's not an episode. This venture, if you will.
Well, it is an episode. It's episode 6. They call it episode. So
It just seems like they call it, okay.
So they did scrap the idea. Sort of like,
Could you
killing off Han
Could you let him
Solo.
finish his thought, Rons? Would that be okay? Or
He did.
Oh, that was it?
He paused. He paused for 30 seconds. I'm sorry, if you're on a time delay and you can't catch up to us, we're catching up to you.
No, so in that regard, if you notice, character development-wise, everybody looks to Luke now. Everything goes through him. He's the calm presence. He doesn't get emotional anymore. He's not doing that. He's very calm all the time. His demeanor is calm. He's become very wise. We don't really know all the stuff that happened between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. There's a lot of adventures that actually took place during that time frame. For example, which I thought was going to be one of the first things you asked, is Luke has a new lightsaber. Did you notice that, Tromondae?
Yeah. Yep.
So where did that come from? How did he get it?
Yes.
What happened with that? Well,
he lost his one.
Well, it was his dad's.
Vader.
But it does show up later. He made one. He made it himself. So making a lightsaber,
and I think we talked about that a little bit on the last podcast.
Yeah. So that's a new thing. So there was all kinds of other things. He actually had a confrontation. There was actually a battle between him and Vader prior to this one in Return of the Jedi also. They fought on another planet.
So how do you know these things?
You have to read.
Without knowing.
You have to read the books, read the comics.
So they suck you in.
Yeah, but they have to be approved. But they all have to.
And, and if you go on the web, there's a lot of behind the scenes things.
Yeah, but how do you know these behind the things if you're just watching 3 movies like Tromondae is?
That's true too. I mean, you either get an expert who can confirm it, like the Beaveman, right? Or Andy, or, you take it with a grain of salt. Is it really true or not? I mean, sort of like, there are a lot of things I didn't know about the movie that the Beaveman and Andy clued me in. And then I kind of like going behind the scenes. I've seen the movie a couple times and I'm like, wow, there's one point where Carrie Fisher was talking,
Yeah, but
walking across Jabba the
does
Hutt.
behind the scenes? You're talking about like trivial stuff. Like the behind the scenes stuff doesn't answer the questions of the Star Wars saga.
Well,
You're
no,
talking about
but
stuff
you
like,
talk about
oh
character
yeah,
development.
this guy was eating drinking Starbucks at this time. That's a trivia question. Like, yeah, what does that have to
No,
do with
no,
the
yeah,
actual
but you
saga?
talk about you talk about character development. You talk about character development,
But that's
and
not behind the
well,
scenes.
when
Behind the
Luke was
scenes means
supposedly going to,
from the director's point of view or
well,
all this other.
would
Or
you let me
that's
finish?
I don't think you're using that term correctly.
You know,
I don't think you
you
know what
talk
that
about
means.
George Lucas, right? Okay, whatever. But the thing is, when you talk about George Lucas and how Han Solo was going to be killed off, and they said no, right? We don't want to kill him off, or this is how I want to end the movie. And they said, well, what if we did it this way? Or he was, no, I want to stay true to this point. The character development of what I saw versus what I know, right? So whenever the movie was released to now, I'm still finding out how they still did things, right? Like the General Akbar, right? And the character development on that too. That was really cool.
Uh-huh.
And there's dead silence there.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I'm not sure
I
if
thought the Beaveman was going to
I'm
chime
not
in.
sure if you actually are saying behind the scenes or if you're talking about something else. We're talking about fiction, not nonfiction.
I'm talking about the interesting facts about the movie itself as well. So whether it's behind the scenes, character development, as you said, or whatever, I find it interesting.
Right.
Go ahead, Tromondae.
Yeah, so I think or the Roms, when you said like behind the scenes for the Beaveman, he was thinking more so of like things that were literally done behind the
Yeah,
scenes
like
on set
how you
as
designed a
opposed to
set, how
the
you do
development of the story.
Oh yeah, yeah, but it also gives into how the story developed that way, right? Yeah, there are some interesting trivial facts, like while filming Return of the Jedi, right? Crew members were in bright colored vests, and this is something I didn't know. Stood near Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca, so he wouldn't get accidentally shot by someone mistaking him for Bigfoot. Because where they filmed that, and I thought that was pretty interesting. One of those trivial
Yeah,
facts.
I was just wondering, is this helping clarify things for Tremonde? That was my
I
question.
think it is.
Is that
I think it is.
teaching you about the
No,
Star Wars? That's what I keep telling you, Rons. I'm like, what does this have to do with learning about Star Wars here?
no,
44 minutes in. Still don't think that I've even scratched the surface with Tremonde whatsoever.
Hey,
Okay.
Tremonde,
yeah,
did you
no.
know that Chewbacca is a vegetarian?
So like Ryan, you're speaking about more of like the making of the movie, not necessarily the making of the story.
Of the
Yeah,
characters, yeah.
take it for what you will. Anyway, let's continue. Well, yeah, you know what? What the heck? What other questions do you have,
So,
Tremonde?
can you remind me of Billy D. Williams' character's name?
Lando Calrissian.
Yes. So did his and Han Solo did their relationship change? Because I know like the last um episode, Han didn't really trust him, but this episode it seemed like they were kind of on a different relationship status. Did their relationship change or did it not?
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation on, and again, it's not in the movie. It's not very well spelled out, but you would have to read the books and the character development in the books and the fiction to realize that they've been friends for a long time, even though Solo says they are friends, they're kind of not friends or whatever. They've been through a lot together and they know about each other's exploits. So again, Lando fucked Han over, but it's not like they were best buddies in that respect, but he also had an entire city to protect. So he did go and rescue Han with the rest of them. And you have to remember also, this took a long time. Han was probably frozen in carbonite for at
Mm-hmm.
least 6 months. That's about the time frame between those two movies. So he
So
was
he fucked
frozen.
him over, but he still had his back in the end.
Yeah, he had to go save him. It was always his plan
Yeah,
anyway.
right.
He's a gambler. He's trying to he's trying to be on the winning team. He's trying to win for himself. But now he's part of a greater good. So their relationship is a lot different. But yeah,
He's
realistically,
playing the short game and the long game.
realistically, if Han was frozen in carbonite that whole time, and according to the book, he was aware of everything that was going on while he was frozen in carbonite. In other words, it's not like he was unconscious. He was in a semi-conscious state, so he knew that he was immobile and frozen. That would suck. So what else would you have to be angry about for 6 months other than wanting to wring Lando's neck?
I'd be starving.
Again, you have to suspend some disbelief with that last movie, because you're like, what, all of a sudden we're not mad at Lando anymore just because he went to go rescue Han?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they do seem very close all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of, it is a
They
little
do.
bit of, it's a
They
little
do.
flawed.
And
It's
that,
a little flawed.
yeah. Yeah. So what were the little teddy bear people?
The Ewoks.
Ewoks. So in that scene where they kind of just come like swarming in, I thought that was just like
Aren't they
fucking dope.
cute?
They were, and they're just like popping out everywhere. So for they almost like kind of like invaded that land and like set up their base on the area where the stormtroopers and stuff were. Like, are the stormtroopers not a very smart army for them to be able to come in and set up weapons and shit on their ground? Like, how did they manage to pull that off?
The Empire doesn't care.
Yeah, the Empire doesn't care.
They'll invade
But when you
any
look
area.
at the Empire's weapons, when you look at the Empire's weapons and the Ewoks' weapons, or the Empire's technology versus the Ewoks' technology, it's basically night and day.
It is.
They're gonna, they're just gonna come in, set up, take over, and that's that.
And you have to remember, this is an entire moon, so they're not occupying the whole moon of Endor where the Ewoks live. They're just in a specific area for the power for the shield generator. And also,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
marketing. They knew that if they made the Ewoks a certain way, the kids would love them, and that would make more appeal for the movie. And then you could sell all the characters. Like, everybody my age knows that one of the Ewoks' name is Wicket. Everybody knows that. So again, you would have to read the books, because in the book it actually says that the Ewoks, they're cute little teddy bear looking things, but they're fierce warriors, and there's a lot of them. And you don't really get that. You just think they're kind of goofy, kind of campy little guys. And when you're talking about where the stormtroopers occupied, the Ewok village, that they show and everything, that's not super accurate, because the Ewoks actually live hundreds of feet up in the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Their whole village is like an entire system of trees, huts, bridges, all these different things that are suspended above the ground. They go down to the ground to hunt and all that other stuff, but they actually live way up above. And the Empire probably didn't know that and didn't care, because they don't care. Their whole goal is to dominate the entire galaxy and crush whatever they want to crush. They blow up entire planets. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Here's a question I have that I thought that you would ask. I thought that you would ask this question, Tromondae. If you remember, the Ewoks, they let Luke and Han and Chewie, they cut them free because C-3PO stands up and they start worshiping C-3PO as their god. Now, I thought that was weird, because if I was going to worship anybody as a god and I'm an Ewok, I would have looked at Chewbacca and said, pretty sure that might be my god. But I think I figured out why they wrote it that way.
Well, why is that? I'm interested to hear your take on that.
I think it has something to do with George Lucas's interest in history, because when the Spaniards invaded South America and they were all armored and on horses, they thought that they were gods because they had depictions of them or stories of them in their history, in their ancient history, of their coming back. So in the Ewoks, obviously also had that in their history. Long time ago, they had someone that resembled C-3PO, who was their god. as opposed to looking at Chewbacca and saying, "Oh, that's a giant one of us. That would be our god." So it's so completely different from them, which I thought was really kind of interesting. I think it's a history. I think it's a
I could see that, but I was going more of a. I was going more with a biblical stance of a golden idol come to life, right? And if you look, George Lucas, of course, draws, like you said, throughout history, you find golden idols or golden statues throughout history people would worship. And when they see C3PO, he is this gold statuesque humanoid, right? And he's like, "Oh, you're a god. I mean, you're the color of the sun, right? And you're taller than us, and you speak to us in different languages. So, of course, you've got to be a god, right?" And then, of
There's more
course, there's that
religion.
scene. What's that?
I said, there's more religion.
Yeah, of course. And I never made that equate, but when Luke tells C3PO, 3PO, tell them that you're their god and you will destroy them,
not exactly what he
right? And
said,
he
but
he uses the. Well, yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but he uses the force to lift up the chair, and I'm like, the god is angry now,
you
right?
would make
So,
your point so
and
much
that's
better
where
if
that
you
was.
didn't say right every 3 words. Just throwing that out there. So for
You're right.
listeners of the Slaptail Squad, if you're playing your drinking game with Iran's, every time he's spoken, he said it pretty much every 3rd word. So you should be completely hammered by now. You probably haven't learned anything about Return of the Jedi, but you're probably hammered.
All right, I
Poor
will
Ron.
endeavor to loosen that fill word out of my vocabulary.
He's just going to replace it with correct.
So
It's probably a good idea.
get to the scene.
Okay, and that word too.
The scene where Darth Vader is in flames.
Oh yeah, I hit on that last podcast with us, I think.
So I'm thinking back to what you were saying, the Beefman, with the writing of this series. Why did he initially like start off with number 4? Like, was he just trying to do something different and then realize, oh, this is more of a hit than what I thought it would be? Maybe I should go do 1, 2, and 3 just because there's space for me to do so.
You want my opinion or
I feel like that's a theory. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we want your opinion. We definitely do.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like when you think of Star Wars, Darth Vader is one of the main characters that you think about. And to think about that he'll show up in 4, 5, and 6 and then he's no more. And then knowing that they did go back and do 1, 2, and 3, but was it because he realized, oh, this has become such a thing that there needs to be more to this story. Let me go back and add more. And so then that brings all these characters who may have gone back into Star Wars reality.
I think that he started with a general outline of what he wanted to do and felt that it would be more interesting if Darth Vader was already Darth Vader instead of seeing the transition that he made from being Anakin to Darth Vader. Because you had to have to have that struggle, and you had to have Luke trying to figure out who his father was and being this key pivotal character. So, do I think that he had 1, 2, and 3 written? No, I don't believe that. I mean, maybe he did. Maybe, I mean, I still love George Lucas no matter what, even though I call him a liar. I mean, I still love him for his gift to the universe. But I don't believe that he had 1, 2, and 3 written. I believe he had a general idea of a story and said it would be far more interesting if I take it from this perspective first. And then after he completed these 3, it took him 18 years to give us episode 1 from the last movie. So from Return of the Jedi.
Well, and he's kind of genius because he took it and he turned it, and if he didn't write it, he turned it into what everybody wanted for this
Oh, he
time
totally
period.
did that. Because that's why, again, why I say that he didn't write it, because a lot of the movies have a lot of fan service, and they also have a lot of correlations to what is going on politically in the world at that time. So again, I think he had a general idea, but I don't think he had episode 1, 2, and 3 written. And who knows? He can do whatever he wants. He could have manipulated. He could have just said, you know what do people want to see? And that's what I'm going to make it. And that's what he did. We all knew Anakin existed.
And if he wanted to see it and nobody else cared, he didn't fucking care anyway. You're gonna watch it because it's Star Wars.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there are several answers out there. Lucas does answer that particular question, right? Lucas initially made Star Wars as a more or less standalone movie with some amount of extra content written for potential sequels, right? And that's where a lot of that's where that came from. And of course, double backing on what the Beaveman and the Swan said. Yeah, now I have all this, and now I can write the story. So it was really interesting.
It just makes him a brilliant writer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
So, question. Thinking about Darth Vader, is there anything that like do you have like any takeaways of him as a parent that like applies to us parenting now, or no?
Well, that's an interesting. That's an interesting question, to say the least. How many times have you wanted to force choke somebody?
Parenting wise, you
I
wanted to
know
choke your
throat
children
punch
as a
is
parent.
almost the same.
No,
I said, how many times have you wanted to force choke
he asked
somebody?
about parenting.
Right?
You said child.
He asked
You said
about parenting
child.
wise, and you
Yeah.
immediately went to force choke.
I'm speaking about it from a parent perspective
Yeah.
of Luke. Yeah.
And you immediately went to choking a child.
As a
Rons.
parent.
No, I did not.
No, you did. That's exactly what you did. He asked from a parenting perspective, and you said,
I said,
"Oh, this means you want to force choke somebody." That's what you said.
I said somebody. I didn't say a
but
child.
you implied
you're
a child because that's what we were talking about.
I did not imply. You implied using your dark force technique.
He wants to take it back to a sexual force choke. Just leave him alone.
Whoa, back the hell up on that.
As for Darth Vader and parenting wise, you can see the evolution of Darth. Again, this is also why Return of the Jedi is my favorite, is because you see this evolution of Darth Vader. Now, it's not till episodes 1, 2, and 3 when they ruined Darth Vader for me, but this is.
But did he even technically know he was a parent in the other two movies?
Between 2 and 3, he learned who Luke was.
Okay.
Rather, 4, 5, and 6. Between 5 and 6, he learned who he was. Yes.
So did your opinion of Darth Vader change, Tromondae?
I didn't even get to answer the question, but go ahead.
I know, but I wanted to see what his opinion is before you give the answer, because I know then his opinion might change.
So in this episode, I saw a different side of Darth Vader, where I've always seen and thought of him to be this very cold, live by the Force, dark side, and like here in this episode, like I saw that he actually had a heart, if you will.
Right.
Which I would have not expected that to show up.
When he found out that Luke was his son and had actually survived and Leia was his daughter, it kind of turned him around, right? And take a drink there. So one of the things that the B-Man has said about the suit, right, and it's not widely in the movie, but it's canon that suit was designed to keep him in pain and angry all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So he would go to the dark side. Once he realized that his son was alive, he no longer had to be confined to that anger, right? Because he thought he'd killed his wife, thought he killed his, and killed the kids, right?
Right.
And
right.
So take a drink. So when
get to the point, Rons.
Luke cries out. So when Luke cries out, "Father, help me," and I'm probably paraphrasing that, he realizes he doesn't have to be angry anymore.
Yeah.
And he saves his son.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
And I think he kind of had a line where he kind of said like his son saved him.
Yeah.
I think Luke would say like I need to save you or something like that. And so is 3 where like I can like see his mother, or does she not have a physical appearance in?
No, we never see the mother.
Okay.
We never see the mother in
But
Return
again,
of the
this is
Jedi.
also continuity.
We just know that
It's
she
also a
died.
continuity issue.
Yeah.
Because there's a scene where Luke
Yeah,
is
it
talking
is.
to Leia and says, Leia, tell me about your mother. And she tells Luke about these memories of her mother, which is complete bullshit because her mother died in childbirth. So there's a lot of continuity issues between all the movies and the books. Padme died, and as soon as she gave birth to Luke and Leia, she died of a broken heart. So Leia never saw her. She saw her just as much as Luke did. That was it.
So Beaveman, I have a question. As someone who is very in depth with Star Wars, do you just like forgive him for these errors, or are they just overlooked, or like?
As fans of Star Wars, we overlook it, but we talk about it. If that makes any sense. In other words, we overlook it because he gave it to us, because we wanted it. He gave it to us. And as long as nobody's sitting there trying to tell me that he had it all written out ahead of time, I'm like, you know what? You can tell he didn't. I mean, come on. Here's the continuity issues. You can tell that the scripts were written so that Obi-Wan doesn't know who the fuck Leia is. Obi-Wan doesn't recognize R2. But if you read the book, or the stuff that's written after the movies were made, he knew who R2-D2 was. He's like, oh yeah, that's R2-D2. But his memory was probably wiped. So I better not bring it up that I know who it is. But you don't get that from watching the movies. And the reason why you don't get it from watching the movies, because it wasn't in the canon. It all got added later by fans who wrote stuff, and Lucasfilm doesn't let you just write a book and release it. They have to approve it if it's going to be Star Wars. You know, you can do fan fiction, blogs, or whatever, but actual books that become part of the canon are approved by Lucasfilm and Lucas Publishing, or whatever they're called. And he lets that stuff go out there. So people get to expand on it, and he lets it go. And so that becomes part of it. It becomes part of this giant canon universe that he ultimately approves, and now Disney approves.
Yeah.
But the continuity isn't there because you can tell from the first 3 movies. Like Ron said, he just planned on that first one as being a standalone movie. He didn't know it was going to take off like it did.
Be loved.
He didn't know it was going to become the religion that it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
But we forget. I think most of us forget
what he made on the 4th episode?
He had to share it. I know that. That was the deal he made with Steven Spielberg.
Really?
You have to look that up. But there's some profit sharing there because he was worried about that movie. And he went and asked his buddy Steven Spielberg about it. And he said, hey, look, if you're so worried about it, you know, I'll give you, I think it was shares of whatever profits of whatever movie he was doing. And you do that for me also. And we'll do some profit sharing thing. Because he was worried it wouldn't go anywhere.
And did that carry on throughout the rest, or was that just with 4?
Oh, who knows what they did. I read the story a long time ago. I don't remember the specific details of it, but it was pretty interesting that he was that worried about the movie. I don't know what movie Steven Spielberg was making at that time, but they had some little deal. So Steven Spielberg made money off that movie, and he really didn't do anything.
That's interesting.
Just put his name on it.
So to answer your question, opening weekend of Return of the Jedi made $23 million.
For episode 4.
For the first. The fourth
my mistake.
one, yeah.
My mistake. Well, I'll go back to what you said, what we alluded to in the other podcast that we did with the Star Wars trivia, is that, you know, the religious overtones in it, or paying homage to other cultures. Did you notice that there was a Viking funeral fire?
That's not only the Vikings that do that, dude.
Well, yeah, but
No.
that's what most people associate it with. I mean, it could be a
No,
Hindu
I
or an
don't. I
Indian.
don't. I don't associate it with Vikings.
You don't, but some other people do. But it's up to you. But he had a funeral pyre, right? Did you see that? Where he burned the body of Darth Vader.
Yeah, he brought that up like one of
Yes.
the first things.
So that was, okay.
You remember? Tremonti's the one who brought that up
So
already. Remember? He was talking about that.
okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
I mean, he brought that
I'm
up
just
already. I mean, that was one of the first things he brought up.
But I wanted to double back and say, because we were talking about, because you guys opened my eyes up, the gold statue and everything else, and how George Lucas pays homage to different cultures throughout his entire movies. So I thought that was pretty cool too. And I didn't want to bring that as a spoiler alert too soon until now. So do you have any others? Open my eyes. What did you see that I may have missed?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I honestly like some of the things that you mentioned, especially like about like R2D2 and like possibly being like a statue or an altar, if you
That's
will.
C3PO, not
That's something that
R2D2. R2T.
I'm sorry, CP3.
Yeah.
Yes. That's something that I didn't think of as like when I was watching it. And I was like, when you mentioned it, I was like, I could very much so see how that could have been. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what really got a lot of people going on that is they didn't think here is this almighty empire that's a force for the entire galaxy being defeated by teddy bears.
Well, that's the thing, though, is they made them that way, and they're really actually. I mean, if you look at them, they're wearing bones and stuff like that, and they're wearing bones of large animals that were
Mhm.
predators. So they're obviously very fierce warriors, but we don't get that because they had to make it a campy way for us to want Ewoks. They had their own cartoon. They had their own cartoon and all this other stuff. There's a lot of Ewok
I remember
canon.
the cartoon.
By the way, so here's the George Lucas and Steven Spielberg story. This is what happened. They were good buddies. So he went to visit, George Lucas went to visit Steven Spielberg on the set of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And because he was worried about Star Wars, he told Steven Spielberg that he thought that Close Encounters was going to do so much better than Star Wars, and it was going to make a ton of money, and it was going to be this great sci-fi movie. So he said, I'll trade you 2.5% of Star Wars for 2.5% of Close Encounters. And they made that trade. And Spielberg made $40 million off of that trade.
And how much?
Because
did
Star Wars
Lucas
was
make?
the much bigger box office smash than Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah,
That's
so
pretty crazy.
Spielberg
Really?
Yeah,
was
but
the
Close
genius
Encounters
there.
was still a big movie when it came out too.
Okay, but
I've never heard of it.
he lost $40 million. George Lucas gave up $40 million
But how much
to
did he
Steven
make on
Spielberg.
the other one?
Well, let's put it this way:
How much did he make on the
2.5%.
other one? Just 2.5%.
If I could just speak, I'll tell you. Close Encounters of the Third Kind made $304 million. Star Wars made $775 million. So whatever their cut was, it was nothing comparative.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
I'm sure he didn't make no $40 million off of it, but Steven Spielberg did. And he didn't do anything on the movie, despite Ron's always saying that he did. He didn't. He just got his name attached to it for making $40 million freaking dollars. That's awesome.
Wow.
Not a good move.
But still riding on the coattails of that, and that's what he did, right? That's still pretty impressive.
I don't think anybody said it wasn't impressive. Did I say that wasn't impressive? That was the whole point of the story, Ron's. That was the whole point. He didn't have to do anything.
All right.
All he did was trade 2.5% of Close Encounters for 2.5% of the profits from Star Wars. He took
and say, yes, please print my name.
Just went way over the head.
No, it didn't. I was just saying it was impressive.
So, just a random question. Speaking to the behind the scenes things of that Ron speaks to, how did they actually do the voiceover for um Darth Vader?
It's just James Earl
Oh,
Jones.
they,
Just a
yeah,
recording
probably in a
just in a recording
studio.
studio.
Right. So I know it's James Earl Jones, but as far as so they just like they filmed it, and then do you think they just had him come in and speak? Because I mean, like the timing of like the body language of the person actually
Oh
on
yeah,
film, it
I'm sure he
matches
still
Yeah.
speaks the lines.
the
He still speaks
audio.
the lines.
They just dubbed out his what he says.
Okay. Mm.
It's not like you actually have to match it up to the lips moving.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Swan's right. But when you see how they do that, right, they will have, and there's a behind the scenes where Han is talking to Chewbacca, but it's Peter Mayhew talking back to
Are you gonna tell the
Harrison
same
Ford
story
in
again?
character.
You can tell the same story again.
Yeah. Well, this leads into it. So you got David Prowse walking through his scenes, and the actors are supposed to respond to that. So they take that scene with David Prowse speaking, and they of course respond back to the dialogue. Then they take that film footage and they go to a studio and they show it, and they have James Earl Jones watch the body language and how things are done and speak his lines, so it kind of matches what they're saying and the response timing on that. If you've watched a
Mm.
lot of behind the scenes, that's how they do that for like Finding Nemo and voiceovers.
Yes. Yeah, and I don't think this DVD actually like shows like the behind the scenes of things. I think it's a basic like play settings scenes.
All right. Well, I have a couple questions of things I want you to look at, Tremonde, because you said you're going to watch Return of the Jedi again.
Okay.
Here's the things that I want you to
Yes.
think about. Think about
Especially after this hearing
yeah.
this.
Think about what the significance is of Luke being dressed all in black. Okay.
Oh, I know that one.
I'm not asking you to
Is your
answer
name
it. I said
Tremonde?
I just want him to think about these things. The
I
podcast
I
is
just
over.
said, yeah, I know.
I just want the podcast is over. And I want you to think about, pay very close attention to what Luke's outfit looks like after the Emperor is dead, because it's not all black anymore.
It's Tremonde's question. I was
I'm
just
not
told
gonna
that myself.
answer.
I know you know the answer too.
I'm writing them down so I don't
Also,
forget them.
so that was the big one. The other thing was think about just the evolution of Darth Vader as he went along, and see if you have any insight into that. And finally, the last question I wanted to ask you was, what images appeared at the end? I asked you about that last time. I'm like, was it Obi-Wan, Yoda, and an old Anakin, or was it a young Anakin that you saw?
At the end, it wasn't it an old Anakin?
Okay, if it was, great. If it wasn't, then you saw the new Disney cut, and I don't know what my DVD is. The original cut is an old
No,
guy. It's Obi-Wan, Yoda, and an
yes, I believe
old
it was
Anakin.
the old Anakin.
Okay, cool. All right. Which
Yes,
is a
it
little bit
wasn't a
odd
young
anyway,
one.
because you know what's really bizarre about it? If you look at the timeline, you know how old Anakin would have been? Like 46.
About 40.
Yeah. He would have been younger than like 45.
Really?
Yep. And they made him an old man. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you explained that to me before.
If you match up the time, because when Luke was born, Anakin would have been about 23, anywhere between 23 and 25, I think. And Obi-Wan's like maybe 10 years older than him, 10, 12 years older than him.
Like
And
age
Obi-Wan
range,
would not have been that old either. I mean, he would have been like 50 something. But
like the same age as Darth Vader.
no, Obi-Wan is not the same age as Darth Vader.
How much age
I just
difference?
told you that. I just said that
Tremonde.
he's got to be over 10 years older than him.
Okay, 10 years older. Okay.
When the kids quit arguing, what did you take away from the movie?
I don't know. After like getting a lot of the explanations that I got now, I think going back into it and watching it again will kind of like help fill in the parts of the story that I was struggling with. Because like I said in the beginning, like for some reason this one just seemed a little bit more difficult to follow for some reason, and I don't know why.
So are you going to watch all 3 of them over now?
I kind of want to go back and get a good understanding of this one before I put them all back together.
Yeah, good idea, because there's some stuff that I want to enlighten everybody about, but I don't want to do it until you have a better understanding of Return of the Jedi and all your questions are answered.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. So,
All right.
on that
Well,
note,
excellent. Well, then I guess we
Beaveman,
shall wrap it
thank
up.
you for the shirt, by the way.
You
Well,
are
no, I'm
most
wearing
welcome.
my Star Wars shirt.
Nice
So
job.
thank you for that.
I do not have my pillowcases on my bed yet,
Nice
but
job.
they will be coming soon.
I washed them.
Oh, you watched them?
okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's
Excellent.
cool.
Excellent. Thank you for those. Thank you for those
So
rods.
now
Ron's
now
got me
you
some.
can
Yeah, but I just don't know which way I'm going to turn it. I guess I'm going to turn it so that my head is on Leia's, so I can be like. Because otherwise,
I'm going to find you a Star Wars thong.
A Star Wars
Yeah.
thong.
I got 'em.
That's what you
I'm
said.
going to find the Beaveman a Star Wars thong.
I'd wear
You
it.
got him?
I said they've
He's
got
gonna
them.
type
They
it.
have them.
I used to
Oh, and by
have
the way, this is the
C-3PO
Slaptail Squad.
underoos when I was a kid. In case anyone knows, want us to know.
So,
The
yeah,
shirt,
I thought
the
about
tank
wearing
top,
my Star
and
Wars
the
samurai
underwear.
shirt.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for me, the Beaveman. This has been the Slaptail Squad. Thanks again, Slaptail Nation, for joining us. Next time, we'll fix the Swans' echo. Don't know why she's got that. Make sure we don't have it again. It just makes her sound like she's one with the Force, like she's out there, and she's in the she's a celestial being. She is not this crude matter. Huh? How about that line? Huh? All right. So that's it for me. Adios, mooch fuckos. Right?
Bye from the Swan and the Echo.
Right.
And look at the hands going up. The hands going up already from the Rons. Hey, Tromondae.
Deuces.
Right. Podcast over.